Hi there! Today's video is the last in my short series on stress, and in it we're going to explore burnout and its relationship to stress. The World Health Organization formally classified it as a clinical diagnosis and describes burnout as a syndrome resulting from persistent workplace stress that does not get effectively managed. There are 3 symptoms that you can recognize it by: feeling depleted of energy or exhausted, feeling more mentally distant from your job, or feeling negative and cynical about your job. And then also just not being able to do your job as efficiently as you did once. Your productivity goes down, your ability to deal with tasks and challenges goes down, and your ability to communicate effectively also goes down. People with really bad burnout literally become incapable of doing their jobs. Certain kinds of jobs are more likely to give you burnout than others. The medical profession has a huge problem with burnout, and overwork starts before people even graduate from their studies. Also, social workers, teachers, fast food and retail workers suffer high rates of burnout. However, workplace burnout is up across the board, partly due to economic conditions, but largely related to the work environment and the nature of work itself. Anyone can experience burnout regardless of occupation when they have elevated stress levels, work long hours, and become exhausted and feel unappreciated or devalued. It helps to understand that burnout isn't the same as stress, and that you can't cure it by taking an extended holiday, slowing down, or working fewer hours. Stress is one thing, burnout is definitely another kind of state. Under stress, you still strive to cope with pressures, but as soon as burnout takes hold, you're out of reserves and you've given up all hope of surmounting the obstacles. When you're struggling with burnout, it's more than just fatigue. You experience profound disillusionment and hopelessness and think that all your efforts have been in vain. Life loses its meaning and small tasks feel like a hike up a mountain. Your interest and motivation dry up and you fail to meet even the smallest obligations. It can end up a vicious cycle, with stress and burnout reinforcing each other at the same time and cycling through phases. Burnout has a much higher effect on stress than vice versa, so that the worse a person's burnout becomes, the more stress they will experience of work, such as being under time pressure. Christian Dorman, who led a study at Johannes Gutenberg University in Mainz, said employees struggling with burnout should be supported in time in order to stop the vicious cycle between work stress and burnout. And that the people who try to put a psychological barrier, not a barrier, and that people who try to put a psychological distance between themselves and their jobs are actually the ones who are more likely to develop the symptom of feeling cynical in their burnout, which doesn't help them to feel better. So how do you know it's not depression, that it's actually burnout? The symptoms of burnout coincide with the symptoms of depression. That means they can manifest in a very similar way. They can look like the same thing. Evidence for separating the two as 2 distinct clinical diagnoses has been weak in studies. And emotional exhaustion, the core of burnout itself, reflects a combination of depressed mood and extreme tiredness or loss of energy, and that correlates highly with other depressive diseases. The deciding factor seems to be the reason for being in this state, that it is work-related rather than because of anything else in someone's life. So how can you avoid getting burned out? Number 1, obviously, if you can change your circumstances, do that. Unionize or jump ship and go elsewhere if you can. Even if your job is well organized and your managers are good people and great at their jobs, just the sheer pace and the continuity of what you're doing can eventually lead to burnout if you find yourself not being able to switch off after work and leave the job behind. If you find yourself thinking about it in your free time, it's not a good thing to do. Here I am again with mindfulness. A study on nurses that introduced them to mindfulness practices in the workplace found that it made a significant difference to their levels of stress. So mindfulness practices, if you can start using them at work, breathing exercises, counting on your fingers exercises, whatever they are, they're going to help. Also, you need to keep or strengthen the barrier you have between work life and private life. For example, not answering your work email or your messages in your downtime. This is currently a common battle in the workplace between managers and staff, and unless you put your foot down about it, your company will happily have you working outside of office hours. This is an example of behavior where you can either have a strong or a weak boundary. A solution would be to turn off notifications when you're on downtime. Your beliefs about what constitute your work life and what's part of your private life are also important, and you can sometimes find holes in the barrier between the two there. For example, do you think that it's normal to be thinking about the meeting you had at work and still be trying to find solutions for things that came up in it while you're having dinner with your family? Questioning your beliefs is another way to ensure that you can fix any holes in your life-work barrier. The conditions of your work and corporate culture you work in are also important aspects to consider. Is there a working culture which blurs the lines between your private life and your work life? Are you encouraged to have closer relationships with colleagues than is healthy for your ability to switch off from work? How much do you socialize with your buddies from work, and do you find yourself talking about work with them outside the workplace? If you would like to know what your current risk level is for burnout, then follow the link below the video to take a free quiz. If you think you might be suffering from burnout, then it's important to seek help. A good counsellor or therapist can help you find perspective on your situation and make changes in your life to help you feel better.